Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of the CLAT Podcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome to the CLAT Podcast. If you listened to previous episodes, which I strongly encourage you to check out, especially with Sriram, Rachna, Ayesha, Sana, and Aditya, and so many more people. So I'm your host for the CLAT Podcast. My name is Janardhan Pashupati. I got ranked 38 in the CLAT back in the day in 2013. I was lucky enough to go to National Law School of India University, and I've had the privilege of mentoring hundreds of students through the CLAT cracking process over the past couple of years. Today we have with us Hemaang Gupta, who is one of the people I was lucky enough to interact with through his CLAT cracking process. Hi, Hemaang.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. So he got rank 5 in the CLAT this year and is going to NLS, and we're all very happy and proud of him. And we have Aravind Krishna, who got rank 161, if I'm not wrong.
165.
165. Okay.
165.
So let this go down as the first mistake of the recording. So got rank 165. I have known Arvind for a really long time, and you can clearly. Okay, I'm going to stop making informal jokes. Yeah. So Arvind. Yeah. So I'm lucky enough to have met Arvind now, and as he said, he got rank 165 in the CLAT this year, and we have with us Viraj Thakur, who got rank 50 this year in the CLAT, and it will also be going to NLS. So firstly, congratulations, all of you, and welcome. Congratulations, really well done, and welcome to the NLS family. And we'll get into a portion of this episode where where we can talk about just going to NLS and being at NLS and things like that. So this podcast is brought to you by Target Success. We'll learn more about that at the end of the episode, but really, this episode is about Hemaang, Aravind, and Viraj. So if you guys just want to, apart from the intro I gave you, if you just want to, introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your journey a little bit, and then we'll get into it, please feel free.
Should I go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So my name is Aravind, and I'm a student of science. I'm a grade 12 student. I study PCM, and I decided to. I made up my mind that I wanted to do law. And I think before 11th, I regrettably made the decision to continue with PCM in my boards because I didn't want to throw away engineering as an option in case I changed my mind later on, just as a backup. But like throughout my 11th and 12th, I came to realize that I really wanted to do law, and CLAT was a means to that. I gave CLAT this year, and my preparation was very strange, very unconventional in that I joined a coaching. I did the 2-year program from a coaching center, and like I enrolled myself. I didn't really attend any of the classes, in all honesty, and I started solving mocks very late. I think in mid of the second year, and that's when I realized that I had been solving papers of the old pattern of CLAT, and that I needed to figure something out really quick. This was after the first sample paper dropped. That's when I realized that I'd been doing everything wrong. And after that, I enrolled in a bunch of test series from different coaching institutes, and I figured out a way to try and understand the concepts. And then I practiced a lot, and that's how I ended up here.
Got it. Hemaang, if you want to go next, yeah.
Yeah, sure, sir. So hi everyone. I'm Hemaang. I am from Amritsar, and I took humanities. Thankfully, I didn't come to regret my decision as much as I guess Arvind did. But I still tried to keep that option open of me, going for CA because I belong to a family of chartered accountants, and I decided to take math. That's not a decision that's panning out well at this moment, but well, it's the ship that's sailed already. Yeah. So my prep wasn't as wonky as Arvind's was. It was relatively more straightforward, although I did dilly-dally a bit in starting out with it in the first place. So like I had sort of made up my mind for doing law a little bit before 11th, and my dad had sort of planted the seed in my mind for that Hemang, you're good at debating, you're good at writing, so maybe this is something that you should check out. This plays to your strength. So in about August of 2021, I enrolled in the coaching, and I started solving mocks in about November of 2021 itself. like right when the notification dropped that CLAT had been preponed. So from there, that point on, it was relatively straightforward with respect to how straightforward CLAT prep can be. And yeah, well, here we are.
Right. All right. And I have, I've had the privilege of knowing Hemaang for the better part of a year now, and we're all really happy that he got rank 5. But let me tell you that regardless of if he had got rank 3,200, I wouldn't have cared, because really I mean, obviously I'm overjoyed that he'll be joining the Endless family, and he got such a really good rank, and will be doing well for himself. But what really stands out with Hemaang is the kind of, firstly, he's a really, really nice guy. And he's a real asset to the Endless family in that way. And I hope that continues throughout his professional journey. The second, he's a very curious and interesting guy. I mean, he has a lot of curiosity. I'd love to get into that as well. And I remember, spending like multiple 2-hour calls with him where he would get into the nitty-gritty of everything. Right.
So you've been immensely generous for your time like that.
Yeah, I was, yes. Where I was like, मुझे खाना खाने दे, मैं 2 घंटे हो गए. But he was absolutely, and in a positive way, absolutely relentless in his desire to get it right. And even when later in the past few months where I was occupied elsewhere, he made it a real point to keep in touch with me, really persevered in getting my take on mock analysis and things like that. So I'm really joyful for the effort and the real desire to do well that he displayed, in the kindness and the niceness, the humility that he has. So a lot of this, I'll try. The reason I gave such a big prelude to this is that I want this to be the last time I compliment Hemaang on this podcast. But probably won't be. But I assure anyone watching, listening, that this won't be purely a love fest, and this will be valuable to you. Yeah. So, all right. So, yeah, yes, Viraj. Yes.
Right. So let me start by saying agreed with everything about Hemaang. Like, known him for just a few weeks now, but incredibly nice guy. And as for my introduction, thank you so much. So as for my introduction, like you can see, reflections mirroring, should have taken PCM. That's my name, Viraj Thakur, and I'm from Chandigarh. So my dad's in the army, so been shifting around all over the place. And I think if Arvind's journey was this line that curved all over for 2 years, and Hemaang's was this linear line from November 2021 onwards, mine was just a short burst in November to the date of CLAT, because I was really indecisive in 11th, where I started off with, okay, I want to do CLAT, I want to get into TU, I want to do this, that. Then I changed my mind and was like, that's too much, calm down. Then I changed my mind again and again. Till finally I decided, okay, let's give CLAT, because I like Hemaang. I enjoyed parliamentary debating a lot. I really like writing. So law is kind of the field for me. So that's how I started. And as for coaching, I did have the career launchers test series and no classes though. And my dad knew someone who ran a CLAT institute in Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh. So from there, I had like doubt sessions and concept clearing for legal studies, because I was essentially completely new to CLAT.
Got it. And Viraj, you've been brought up, I don't know if on the recorded portions of the podcast, but you've been brought up at least a couple of times in the conversations we've had with other people taking the CLAT, and they kept mentioning how your interest and your strength at parliamentary debating. And I can already see that, as an edge, sitting here, I'm like, 75 to banta hai. Yeah. So like I can all like 75 plus to banta hai. So I'm just like, with the structure that in your elocution, I can see that you're going to really please get involved in parliamentary debate at NLS. I can see that you're going to be an asset to the stellar teams that we've had in the past, and are going to have a lot of fun in BP and PD at NLS. So get involved with the DebSoc, get involved with
Definitely.
so go join up there for sure. And it's going to be
Yeah, that's honestly one of like the biggest reasons I was really motivated for CLAT, because it's like, that one passion you find. So just that.
right. So go for it. I can completely I can see that you're going to have a lot of fun, and hopefully you're going to do, and I can see that you're going to do well in there. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Right. So So we have three different stories of CLAT prep, right? So it's very difficult to construct a cohesive storyline in that context of how to crack the CLAT in that context. So what do you think was so that we can give the most value in the shortest amount of time? If you guys had right up front, if you guys had to think of like three things that were common amongst your CLAT prep that really enabled you to crack the CLAT, what would those be?
If I can go first, I think the single biggest thing would be probably, like, I'm assuming a bit here, but mock analysis, where whatever mistake you made, you just understand that perfectly. Like you said, Hemaang just went over his mocks for as long as he gave the mock. So I think that's probably what made the biggest difference between 100 out of 150 and 110 out of 150, something like that.
Yes, for sure. So I know there's so we'll get into that. Yes, Aravind. Yes.
Oh yeah, so in a similar vein to Viraj, mock analysis is extremely important, and in the same way, like solving questions, be that mocks, be that sectional tests or topic tests, whatever it may be. I feel like, especially an exam like CLAT, it's a lot more important to solve rather than to study or prepare, because I've known people who spent a lot more time studying legal concepts or perhaps like reading a lot of GK, which of course is important, but I feel like when you CLAT being a very reading heavy exam, like when you familiarize yourself with the kind of questions that can come and like try to improve your reading speed and your comprehension, that will be the biggest tool for you when you're giving the exam, as opposed to knowing a lot of the laws and things like that. So like when you want to use your time fruitfully, I feel like solving would be a much better option than studying in an exam like that.
I couldn't agree more. Yes, Hemaan. Yeah.
I think like the third thread of commonality, so to speak, could be the fact that all of us have had a pretty consistent habit of reading, if not books, then reading in general. Like, scouring the internet for whatever we find interesting to read, or, even the newspaper. Like, it's a habit that you have to build, but once you get into the rhythm of it, you sort of start to enjoy it. So having that habit in itself is very beneficial when it comes to an exam like that. And I think that's also something that all three of us had in common.
Right.
Definitely. And if I may, I'll add on to that in the sense that GK preparation, I feel like there's quite a big misconception in that Viraj, he pulled up with 0 GK prep is the exam. But no, a lot of people think that the only way to prepare for CLAT GK is this reading the newspaper. I feel like, especially in the starting stages, I wasn't very, I didn't have the habit of reading a newspaper, right? So the way I like try to understand, like, or be aware is the other sources that I'm on, like the internet, like on YouTube, for example. If I search up a lot of news and like watch news consistently on YouTube, the algorithm starts recommending more news, and it's like inevitably I'll end up surrounding myself with a lot of things that I should know, whatever is relevant, current affairs and everything, right? So in that sense, and then once you start getting in that groove, then even reading the newspaper becomes a lot of fun, and then you start liking, and then you improve your comprehension. I feel like that's the spiral I went down. I mean that in a positive way, but I feel like that's how that's my GK prep strategy.
I feel like
And
to
like,
add on to that, like, sorry.
नहीं, so
like I was just
हाँ बता Hemaan.
मैं यही कहने लगा था that I was just piggybacking off what Aravind was saying, that after a certain point, not reading the newspaper on a particular day felt weirder than not having like read it. Like towards the last month of my prep, I did not read the newspaper because I had to catch up on old GK, and the consortium really wouldn't have asked GK. That would have happened in December itself, right? So just leaving the newspaper and seeing कि हाँ हिंदू घर पे आया है, but I'm not touching it, it felt a very weird exercise in it.
Right. Yes, Viraj. Yeah.
Right. So I think to add on to that, once you get into the habit of reading followed by solving, like for me personally, after some time, whenever I read a passage, I would start anticipating questions from it. So if five questions had to come from a passage, at the end of the passage, I could already predict what three were. And with my pencil, I'd just mark down which ones were the important points or, which were the words that would define the degree of what would come, the scope, stuff like that.
Right. That's very, very important. So I think we've touched on quite a few things, and that's it. So I continuing to add value in the shortest time possible. I know that Hemaang was very clinical and took a lot of, like I said, was very thorough in his preparation. But Viraj, just as Aravind said, just turned up and was like, let's do this. And Aravind had a very unfortunate journey in many ways towards his CLAT.
Scary.
Yeah. So he was very well prepared if he was writing it in 2030. Yeah. So yeah. So what are some what I really want to dig into, and we go. This will be a really long conversation. I know from Hemaang's side at least, and from others. So let's start with Viraj in that context. What are some tactics that really made or broke your exam and your prep? Not your prep as much, but like in your ability to answer questions and things like that. Yeah.
Right. So I think, like we've already touched upon, the biggest thing was just getting into the flow of solving questions. And that's one thing I regret not doing morning of CLAT, because morning of CLAT, I was stressed just going through my GK notes. But I think I could have really improved my score if I just, sat down, gave one sectional test, because then, just subconsciously, there's this muscle memory within you of whatever you solved for however long your prep journey was. So if I had done that, I feel like, I could have scored way higher. So that was one thing I kind of regret. And now that I think back, that was something common between all my mocks. Like before every mock, I just sat down, went over my mistakes, resolved some of the really tricky questions, and that really boosted my score, I feel.
Got it. Right. Aravind?
If you're talking about on the day of CLAT, exactly what, the way Viraj answered, I'd say what I should have done is, I think before the exam, like Viraj said, to get into the flow of things, like before mocks, I used to like read something and then start. And what I did for CLAT, and what my parents also told me, they're like, don't stress yourself out the day before or on the day of the exam, and it's better if you just relax and then give the exam. But I feel like I'd have been better off if I just like had a newspaper with me. I was like reading on the way there, and then you get into the flow of like reading things, and you start comprehending, and your brain starts working that way. And in that headspace, you'd be much better off giving the exam than if you just went in completely blind after a day and a half of just chilling, right? I feel like that would be a good way. And also, I'm sure you know, but like my exam center was it was very close to NLS.
Yeah.
And there's this like really small chai shop there.
Yeah.
And me and a friend, we went and had like this small cup of coffee, and that really helped. I'm
Right.
sure.
Yeah, I carried like sodas with me into my exam hall. I remember. So
Oh yeah.
I don't think we've touched upon this, but having sugar, I tell my students, but I don't think we've touched upon this in the podcast. Have sugar or caffeine in your system and water while you're writing the exam. It's a long exam, and keeping your energy up will be important. So I carried a Coke and a Sprite, I still remember, into the exam hall. So and I think we'll get into Hemaang's answer, but it'll be a 1 hour long answer. So we're going to do it in the next part of this episode. But the one thing that I think would be fun to discuss is that I got ranked 38. Aravind got ranked 165. Did I get it right this time? Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. And Viraj got ranked 50 and Hemaang got 5. So firstly, I want to hear from Hemaang because there are many people like who I talk to students after the CLAT where they're like, if I had done this, I could get a higher score. And I know that I got 0.25 marks, less than rank 37 in my year. And for 5 years, that was like a running joke between us. So like a hurtful running joke that I started. So my point was that we're going to NLS. I went to NLS, but what is it about the CLAT experience that at this back of your head you're still like, I could have done better? Yeah. So what is that about? So let's start with, because Hemaang got rank 5. So how do you feel about that, Hemaang? And let's make Viraj and Aravind feel. I don't know. Yeah.
So right before I start, just a slight disclaimer: just because I've got a higher rank in CLAT, it is most definitely not a predictor of what my quote unquote success is going to be like in law school. So just take everything I say with a bucket of salt, because this could be things that these could be things that uniquely apply to me and not everyone at large.
Right.
So just because I have a higher rank, it doesn't necessarily give my word better credibility than
no. I'm talking
that
about
of others.
I'm talking about CLAT though, but I just want to make a quick point, which is that he's absolutely right. These ranks don't matter anymore, one iota. What you do in law school is what matters. Anyway, yes, sorry, go on, Hemaang.
Yeah. So one thing that Viraj was mentioning, that maybe he should have solved something on the day of the exam itself. So I woke up like at around 10 a.m. Like I slept properly. Like I think raat ko 2 baje hum soye the. I was just dicking around with a couple of friends before the night of the exam. And in the morning when I woke up, as like most people, I was frantically running through some GK notes. But then Sana sort of calmed me down. She said, "This is not a school exam that you can do that for." So instead, I just went over the second sample paper, which I knew I had royally fucked up. Like it was supposed to be a paper, but I guess I got into that notion that it was an easier paper, so I could rush through it. And I went through it in 1 hour 20 minutes, and of course that reflected in my score. So I went through the questions that I got wrong over there on the way to the center. Like I think I was running through them on the way to the center, and I just checked what I had gotten wrong at home itself. So when I went into the paper, I was at least vaguely aware of where I could put